Good evening. For those of you new to our community, my name is Megan Bozius, and I'm proud to serve as principal of Oradell Public School. Contrary to what you might have heard in the public, today is not a board meeting. I'm not so lucky. I don't have a gavel. And the fact is, it's not a town meeting. It's an Oradell Public School family meeting, because that's what we are, now more than ever. We're a family that may not always agree, a family that may argue, a family that may push each other in the back seat. However, we're a family because we have one common care. We care about our children. And if we continue to put that at the forefront of every decision we make, and we agree that sometimes we'll disagree, we're going to move forward together as a family. There are some other members of our family here today. Our interim superintendent, Barbara Longo, is with us, and assistant principals, Mr. Michael Hagopian and Mrs. Michelle Hawley, are here. Mrs. Hawley will be monitoring the chat today. If you have a question during the presentation, we ask that you chat to Mrs. Hawley directly. Additionally, we also ask that you shut your video off. It just makes for a smoother presentation today. Okay, with that, let's get started. It seems like March 13th was ages ago. It seems like March 13th was ages ago. And as we traveled through the spring, we had one goal: just make it through. When we got back here, everything would be the same. And the fact is, around June 26th, we learned it wouldn't quite be the same. We're not ready for what was our old normal. It's time to transition to a new normal. That new normal, though, will use the information we learned from the spring. Whether you thought it was good, whether you thought it was bad, whether it was indifferent, we asked our teachers, we asked our families, and we asked our upper grade students to evaluate their spring remote learning experience. And that data, which you will find in the reference section of today's presentation, helped inform our next steps. So for those of you who want to know how will it be different, the aspects that will be different were the aspects that you said to us, this didn't work. We heard you, we listened to you, and we made decisions informed by your opinions. On June 26, when the road back was released by the New Jersey Department of Education, we asked our parent community, how comfortable are you returning to Oradell Public School, or would you prefer a full remote model? As of 2 days ago, we had 166 students request for full remote learning. That's 22% of our student population. 49% of those students were in grades pre-K through 2. 51% of those students in grades 3 through 6. After the road back was released, the district began creating reopening committees to inform what our new normal would look like. We've submitted our plan to the county for approval, and it's been posted to our website. If you continue reading down that page, you'll see some of the other important dates. But the one that I really want to draw your attention to is October 9th. Whatever happens on September 3rd doesn't mean that's what happens on December 3rd. It doesn't mean that's what happens on March 3rd. We will continue to revise our program to meet the needs of our children moving forward. We will have a regular and consistent feedback loop starting with the survey on October 9th. So what guides us as we move forward? Well, the truth is, that's the first question we asked our committees. In the spring, we said, emotional well-being first, and make sure to diminish any academic regression. We actually didn't have the largest of focus on increasing academic achievement. We didn't want to lose it. Yet, when you look at the survey results, which also includes academic performance results, you'll see that our students did grow in the spring, according to the Linkit assessment. So as we move forward, the things that we hold dear, that building time is gold. When you are in this building for on-site instruction, we don't want anything to interrupt it. You're not going to go to speech and language. You're not going to go to basic skills. When you are in that classroom, the 10 students in that classroom, that's what the focus is. We are going to maximize that time in the classroom. The goals remain the same. Our goal at Oradell Public School for the past 2 years has been increasing academic achievement for all learners, specifically in the area of mathematics. Just because we have a hybrid model doesn't mean the goal changes. The same approach no matter what. Whether you choose a hybrid approach for your children, whether you choose a full remote program for your children, whether your child is in one teacher's third grade class or another third grade class, whether your child is in third grade or fourth grade. Our focus is on how can we be as consistent as possible to streamline the student experience while also making it easier for parents. Relationships at the core. People are everything, and we need to continue to build relationships and focus on student and adult social emotional learning. Focus on what matters. Many academic institutions are beginning to release documents that say, listen, in fourth grade, this is all the learning that has to take place. But the truth is, the discussion about a parallelogram and a square may be less important right now than being able to compute accurately with fractions. We are going to make deliberate decisions and focus on what matters. And adult learning reaps rewards. And to our parent community, you are part of our adult learners. It's important that we provide education and training for you. We know that on March 17th, when you had to open up a Google Classroom for the first time, your stress and your anxiety levels increased. Part of our focus is not only on making sure that our teachers have all the resources they need to move forward, but that you have all the resources you need to be a partner in education with us. So our remote reopening committees. I've received lots of questions regarding how did you get on a committee? Well, the truth is, when it comes to staff members, we always reach out to the Oradell Education Association, and we also look at the gifts and strengths of our staff members. If we're going to have a social emotional learning committee, then our school counselor and a school psychologist are well served to sit on that committee. In the terms of our parents, my first call was to the Oradell PTA. They are the overseer of the largest stakeholder group that we have. As a result, I started a conversation with the PTA and I got a long list of parents who might be good fits for our committees. They were good fits because of their background. For example, they may be a doctor working in a hospital right now, helping a hospital with COVID protocols. They might be somebody specific with IT. They might have been a representative of a dual working family who wanted to share how hard it was to support their child. They may have been a general education parent or a special education parent. They may have been a teacher in another district, so we could learn about how they best did things in their district. Whatever it was, this wasn't committees picked on favoritism. It wasn't committees picked on who made the most noise. We picked these individuals because they served a need, and that's all that mattered. What strengths, what did we need to put the best plan together? Those are the 4 committees, actually the 5 committees that met through the summer. You can see more about them in the district reopening plan, which is on the front page of the Oradell Public School website. Our committees had at its focus safety first. First safety, then learning. So it's only appropriate that we begin by talking about safety today. So in terms of screening, all staff and families for each of their individual students will be asked to complete a daily attestation form digitally. 2 programs are currently being considered. This is a change from the first version of our reopening plan, where we were only asking parents to sign off several times a year that they promised to check their child for certain measures every single morning. The more we thought about that, and in conjunction with our teachers and with some parents, we felt that an added measure of a daily attestation would be a good reminder of how important safety is each day. If data has not been submitted on that digital form, the student and/or staff member will be sent to the nurse's office to have their temperature taken. All classrooms will also include a child-friendly version of the attestation form to help our students begin to understand symptoms and how to keep themselves safe. I know sometimes that seems that it might provoke fear in our children, but the best way to combat fear is with education. Let's make it that they're in control and they're in control of their own health and safety, and let's teach them how. We are also planning at this time to utilize random temperature checks as an added precaution. That may be a specific grade level that we check. It may be students at a specific door one day as they're entering. Why? Because the fact is, I've been the principal of Oradell Public School for 7 years, and I've seen way too many students be sent to school with a fever. And that's not going to happen. We need, as a community, to keep each other safe. And the best way we do that is to keep our children home when they are sick, when they have a fever. That doesn't mean give them Tylenol in the morning or Motrin. In the school nurse's office, we know when you do that. You see, at 11 o'clock, your Tylenol will wear off. At 1 o'clock, your Motrin will wear off. Your child will come to the nurse's office. They will be asked, how did you feel this morning? I didn't feel so great. My mom gave me Tylenol and I was better. That's not the way to do it. You can not only put your child in danger, but you will put our entire community in danger. And that's one way that we join together and we say we're going to put all children at Oradell Public School first. Rami, it's not moving. No? There we go. Okay. So some general protocols about the school itself. All adults and children will wear masks on OPS property. That includes both outside and inside, with the exception of the snack breaks in grades 3 through 6. All students will be expected to bring 2 masks to school each day and keep 1 mask on site in a labeled Ziploc bag at all times. Hallways will remain 2-way. Our students are very well trained from the start that they walk on the right side of the hallway. But as an added precaution for our adults, sometimes we want to make sure that it's very clear. We will have arrows on the floor and tape lines separating the hallway. We will use one where each of our hallways has 2 stairwells. 1 stairwell will be used for up and 1 stairwell will be used for down. Our classroom doors will be kept open, not just for the circulation of air, but for also so that we can reduce the amount of surfaces a child touches. And you're not visiting, not without an appointment made ahead of time. We need to minimize the amount of people in our building to keep everyone safe. If you do have an appointment, you will be asked to have a temperature check before exiting the enclosed lobby. Parents who pick up a child from the typical nurse's office because your child has a toothache, so the nurse's office as you know it, will wait in the enclosed lobby and your child will be brought to you. Parents who are picking up a child from our isolation nurse's office, which will be the back of the auditorium, will enter through the back of the auditorium to pick up their children. In terms of our classrooms, classroom furniture has been reduced in all of our classrooms, with desks replacing tables in those classrooms that had tables. Students will sit 6 feet away and face forward. No materials will be shared. Students will keep their coat and backpack on the back of their chair or on the floor near their desk. There will be no lockers used and no classroom closets will be utilized. We have purchased for each student a plastic container where all of their materials will go and stay next to their desk during their time on site. General education students in grades 4 through 6 will not change classrooms. They will have 2 teachers. Last year, our 6th graders had 5 teachers, and it was a model I was incredibly excited about. But as I said, every decision we're making is through the lens of safety first. To expose students to 5 teachers and to expose a teacher to up to 100 students in 2 days is not a safe practice if we can avoid it. Thus, our 6th graders will follow the same model they utilized in 5th grade. They will have 1 teacher for language arts and 1 teacher who teaches math, science, and social studies. The students will not move classrooms, the teachers will. That change will happen during the recess period. So if I have a language arts teacher in 5th grade, my teacher will take me outside for recess. During that time, the classroom will be disinfected. Even though the students are returning to the same classroom, the teacher is new to that classroom. And the teacher will change places with the language arts teacher, and now the math teacher will be in the classroom. Can you just go to the next slide and I'll speak from here? Yeah, okay, let me see. We have one small technical difficulty because I'm a little blind these days. So we were trying to make the screen bigger for me and it just stopped working. Bathrooms, go back a slide. Back. There you go. And we can do it from there. Thank you. Okay, so our bathrooms. All urinals have been closed in the boys' bathroom. Each boys' bathroom has 2 stalls, so the boys will be separated in there. Plastic barriers have been purchased to be installed between all sinks. And a schedule is going to be put together so every class has an identified time to go to the bathroom. If a student needs to go outside that time, the teachers will know what classroom is scheduled to go. We'll make a quick phone call, and send a student instead. Water fountains, the drinking part of the water fountain will be closed. However, our bottle fillers will remain open. And if a child needs to go to the nurse, we will not be just sending them down to the nurse. We will call the nurse, and the nurse will make the call on whether the child should come to the regular nurse's office or whether a quick visual check is necessary outside the classroom to make the decision on what next steps should be taken. In terms of entry and exit, students will enter and exit at designated locations. In the case of exit, this may no longer be one door. So for example, our 3rd graders and our 2nd graders will now exit from 2 different doors. Their exit time is different, so it allows us to make that change. And when they exit, there will be cones for where your children will wait and where we ask that you will wait. This will help to create a distanced dismissal situation. In terms of entering, the doors will open at 8:20 and children will go right up to their classroom. If they are in 1st grade, they are not going to sit in the auditorium. They are not going to sit in the hallways. They will go right into their classroom. Upon entry to the building, they will use hand sanitizer, and upon entry to their classroom, they will use hand sanitizer again. We also have begun to put in place procedures for dismissal. So we will allow all non-visual handoffs to be dismissed first, and then teachers will begin taking classes down to their designated dismissal location. After 5 minutes, they will all be walked to the front of the building. We will not be bringing students into the building. We'll have a walkie-talkie. If a student is there late, we will call into the building. A call won't be made home, just like it normally was, but your children for all grades will be picked up from the front at that time. We've had some people ask about what happens if a sibling is picking up a younger sibling. In grades 3 through 6, we will not allow children to walk in the building to get their younger sibling. Those students will be allowed to walk outside the building. In grades K through 2, once we have our data on how many students need to pick up younger siblings in grade 2 or grade 1, that will inform our decision about how that practice will move forward. It's really hard to envision dismissal at Oradell Public School because we keep talking about socially distancing. And anybody who's been at an Oradell Public School dismissal, you're saying to yourself, social distancing and OPS dismissal, yeah, those 2 words don't go together. But the problem is we remember the old. It's a new way now. So for example, when a grade level was dismissing last fall, there were 110 students dismissing. Between the number of students who will be full remote and our hybrid model, a grade level will have 50 students dismissing. So just like it's hard to imagine a classroom with only 11 students in it, it's really hard for us to imagine dismissal. Once we've been through it, if revisions have to happen, we're going to make revisions. And that's the most important message I can give you today, is that this is going to be a work in progress for us collaboratively. Much of what we're doing is not something we can plan for. We can plan, but we don't quite know what it's going to look like. We're going to do it. We're going to revise it. We're going to make it better. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because today we learned that the State Department of Health will be sending out protocols for all schools to follow. This is a true relief for us in education because we've all been waiting. We're trained, we're educated, but we're not medical professionals. So we learned today that the guidelines for positive cases, presumptive cases will be sent to us. When they are, we will add them to our plan and share them with you. With regard to air circulation, we're lucky that in the summer of 2016, all of our classroom unit ventilators were replaced. Each unit does bring in air from the outside. All filters in our window air conditioners, our unit ventilators, and our rooftop units have been replaced. Our windows all work, and they will be kept open in the beginning of the school year. There have been some questions about whether we will be using air conditioners or are we concerned about droplets spreading because of the air coming out of the air conditioner. At this point, we're going to lean on windows more. However, we have not yet been advised not to use air conditioners. So if the temperature gets quite hot, we're going to put our air conditioners on as of today. That may change, and if it does change, our plan will change. In terms of cleaning, all our classrooms will be cleaned and disinfected daily. In the case of K2, twice a day, in terms of 11 o'clock when our first cohort leaves, and again at 3:30. And if you would like to see the specific materials we're using for cleaning, you can find that in the district reopening plan. Had some questions about what additional cleaning will happen on Wednesdays, and the real focus on that is hallways. We need our classrooms cleaned every single day, and we need our hallways cleaned too. But to truly clean the walls and to truly clean all the walls in our stairwells, that's where our focus will be on Wednesdays. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Wednesdays. You know, we talk about deep cleaning, but at the same time, Wednesday has another very important purpose. Our classroom should be cleaned every day. And does Wednesday let us do a little more cleaning? Absolutely. But the truth is, Wednesday has a bigger purpose in terms of preparing us for what could be. So that's about health and safety. And when I sent out the original presentation, I said to you, please send me your questions ahead of time because I'd like to include them in the presentation. It's silly to do a presentation that I've already sent to you. You've read it. So what I've been doing over the past 24 hours is taking your 190 questions and combining some of them, finding trends, taking some of them specifically, revising the presentation to include them. And interestingly, in some districts, 90% of the questions when I talk to their educational leaders are about health and safety. Our questions were primarily about instruction. And I hope that is a statement that you're saying that you trust Oradell Public School and the Oradell Public School District to create a physically safe learning environment for your children. And instruction is what comes next. Safety first, instruction second. So when we had to start thinking about a model, I would like to squash a rumor. Educational leaders don't want to be remote. I want more than anything in the world to be on site. I want to see your children. I want to be reminded every single day why I do what I do. So when we started creating a model, knowing that on-site instruction would be the most valuable tool we had in our arsenal, we started with the dream. We knew right off the bat, a full day, 750 students here, masks on all day would be tough. So how long could we keep students here? And we said, could we bring the entire school in from 8:30 to 1 o'clock, 5 days a week? That's where we started. And to test that model out, we created a table with the square footage of every single usable space at Oradell Public School. We identified how many desks each of those teaching spaces could hold. We said, how many staff members would we need to add if we were to break classes into sizes this small? Could we reappoint staff members from a different department and have them teach second grade to increase the number of general education spaces? And at the end of the day, it was probably one of my first really sad days during planning, because this was my dream. I had to accept it just wasn't possible. We're just too big. We don't have enough space to hold students in groups that are going to socially distance them and allow learning to happen. So we moved on and we said, okay, if we can't bring students in for 4 hours a day, again, really hoping for the consistency of 5 days of on-site learning, what could we do? Could we bring them in 2.5 hours for the whole school? So could we take the model we're utilizing in K2 and do it through K6? And so how do you test that? Well, we did a cleaning test, because the number one thing that would have to occur for that model to happen is we would have to be able to clean the largest elementary school in Bergen County in 80 minutes. So we said, okay, let's see how long it takes to clean a classroom. The business administrator and I had our stopwatches out. We had the custodial team there. We said, okay, they need to sweep the floor. They need to wash the floor. They need to wash every surface in the room. They need to disinfect, and they need to make sure we've allowed the proper dwell time for whatever the materials they're using is to make sure it adequately disinfects. That time came to be between 20 and 25 minutes for a classroom. It depended on if a classroom had a bathroom and how large the classroom was. So we then moved forward and we said, okay, what would we need? We would need 16 custodians at minimum to clean the entire building in 80 minutes. And on top of that, we'd also have to make sure that we had a custodian substitute pool, because we wouldn't have any spare time. And as much as we didn't want to say it, we had to say, you know what? We don't have the resources to support this model. And then we moved forward. We moved forward to the anything with lunch model. And trust me, those of you out there that are saying, I just don't understand, if they can have snack, why can't they have lunch? I get it. You can ask the members of the Educational Leadership and Planning Committee. We battled about lunch for 2 full meetings because we got it. People wanted to extend their child's day here to help with some childcare, possibly to provide some social interaction time. And so we said, okay, let's take it through the same testing process. We weren't looking for easy. We were looking for what was best for our children. So we said, okay, what if they had to go to the NPR? Well, if they were to go to the NPR, 3 children can sit at 1 lunch table 6 feet away. The other table is going to be 6 feet away from them. This doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me, but we still moved it forward. We said, what does that take? Well, for 1 grade level, it would take approximately 15 lunch tables in the entire NPR. So says, okay, what does that mean for us? Well, some of our grade levels we would hope would enjoy brunch, because we'd have to start lunch at around 9:30 in the morning to make that work. So we had to say, at this time, NPR is not going to work. How about tents outside? We heard about some districts doing tents outside. Now, some of those districts are struggling right now because you can't use a tent on school property unless it's fire retardant. But we said, hey, we'll figure that out. Will tents outside work for lunch? Still a significant amount of space for the number of students we are trying to feed during lunch. Still a supervision issue, and the weather is unpredictable. What do we do if it rains? From there, we moved to, okay, if we can have snack in the classroom on a rainy day, let's have lunch in the classroom. Remember, when we have snack in the classroom, our plan is to alternate rows. So only if there's 4 rows of seats in a classroom, only 2 rows will eat at a time, the alternating rows. I said, okay, what if we were to give that up? That's what we believe is the most physically safe, but what if we said 6 feet away is enough time during lunch? Let's try lunch in the classroom. Well, a lunch period has to be 45 minutes because our teachers need to also eat lunch. As we started to think about how many lunch aids that would mean, well, it's a lot. And then we said, okay, they can do 2 lunches. We can have 2 lunch periods. And now we're going against one of the #1 rules, reduce the amount of contact. And we're doing it in a way that, what are we getting? That's what it comes down to. If we bring lunch on site, while it does help a parent with childcare needs, what does it do for instruction? Safety first, instruction second. So we figured it out. Well, if you're going to be on site, you have 45 minutes of lunch, you have a 40-minute special area class. The special area class would have to be in the classroom. Now we're bringing a special area into 5 classrooms. That doesn't seem incredibly safe. We said, okay, the special area could stay in their classroom. The teacher could take a prep. We could put an aide in the classroom. I share this to explain to you that we literally investigated every possibility. At the end of the day, if we kept lunch on site, what truthfully happens is we gain 50 minutes of classroom instruction. What we lose is the 45 minutes of classroom instruction your child will have with their classroom teacher in a small group, their cohort group, after 1 o'clock on each of their virtual days. It just didn't make sense. Now, it didn't make sense then. I'm not saying that on October 9th, numbers are running well. It doesn't start to make sense. It didn't make sense then. We will reevaluate. If things are going well, we'll look at having 1 grade level experiment with lunch, and we'll move forward. A few more comments about the schedule. When we released our scheduling plan, the first question people asked was, why weren't we matching River AA Virtual Day BB? A lot of districts were doing that to reduce the A group coming and then the B group being there and not being able to super clean in between. We have to clean every day. But the #1 reason to go to the AB, Virtual Day AB, has to do with the consistency of teacher on-site contact time. I need our children who are going to come into school at all different levels of motivation to know on their virtual day that they're going to have to look their teacher in the eye the next day and say they didn't do their work. I need those kids and those teachers to know that if something was a little tough on their virtual day, it's no big deal. We're going to take care of it on that on-site day because on-site time is golden. But on top of it, it's just too much time away. If you're in the A group and you use an A virtual day, BB, there are 5 days between when you see your teacher. And I don't believe that's educationally sound. And then we have the controversial V word, virtual day. The virtual day, while everyone is talking about it as a deep cleaning day, and there is more cleaning that we can get done, has another purpose. On March 9th, we had to reinvent school. We had to figure out what was, in 1 week, we had to figure out what we were going to do. What would the programs be? What would the platforms be? How would it work? You know what? It was like not having a map. And truthfully, as the educational leader of Oradell Public School, I never want to be in that position again. I never want my teachers to be in that position again. I never want our families to be in that position again. So the best way is to make sure we're planning all along. The virtual day allows us to practice a full virtual day in case we do land up having to go to a full remote model. Now, if you saw our calendar for September and October, I think there are approximately 4 of those virtual Wednesdays. If on October 9th, we're like, things are going well, the virtual day as well, there will be a specific question on our feedback survey, and we may change our virtual day to an alternating A and B day, so your child would get 1 additional day of instruction every other week. But right now, we need to use that virtual day. We have to use it as a tool to inform our moves moving forward. We all think that we're alone. We all think, you know, we should just be able to have lunch. But the truth is, I look very carefully at what our Bergen County constituencies do. So for example, the Bergen County constituencies are the towns in Bergen County that have a similar socioeconomic makeup as us. And I want to know what they're doing. I want to learn from what they're doing. I talk to them all the time. So I started to look at their plans. And one of the things I noticed is, yes, there were some districts that were keeping their students here and doing my dream plan. But guess what? None of them have over more than 400 students. Our size was actually a disadvantage to us as we created our plan. However, there was also one other thing I noticed. Not one of them were doing lunch in an elementary school. That says to me that they too said, this doesn't get us what it would take to plan, what it would take in terms of fiscal. It doesn't work right now. And so on the next 2 pages, you'll see what other districts are doing, but I really want you to notice the size of those districts. On an A day at 8:40, we will bring in more students than a Wyckoff Elementary School brought in February last year every single day. We're big, and that's got some really great things that I'm going to explain about later, but it also has some disadvantages. And in this case, it impacted our program choice. Can you arrow that? One more time. Thank you. Okay, so what is our overall structure? Well, our kindergarten through 6th grade students, including our full remote students, because their program will mirror our on-site program because that's what's fair. We'll be split into an A group and a B group based on your last name. Now, we felt that sticking with Riverdale's grouping would be the best way to move forward with our families. The truth is, in some grades, that may put more students in the morning than the afternoon. But if in 4th grade, Lee was in the maroon group, but in 5th grade, Lee was in the gold group, and we have siblings, it just would have created too many problems. So you may see in some of our classrooms, there may be 11 students in the morning and only 9 students in the afternoon. In K2, our students will also be in groups, however, they will be on site every single day. And I know that moving to 1240 had some people concerned, but again, it also increases the amount of time a teacher can work with the students who are virtual in the after 1 o'clock. And so the benefit was going to be that a parent could come here at 12, drop a student off at 12:30, pick a student up at 12:40 and go to the middle school. And I could increase the amount of virtual time at the end of the day, the direct instruction time for the remote group. Well, that just made a lot of sense. Again, it could change. If on October 9th, we'll add that to the survey, we'll ask about dismissal, and we'll say, how are things going? So this is what September looks like. And we did make that decision to turn our virtual days into an A day or a B day if either of those groups missed a day of on-site learning because it was a holiday. We will distribute a calendar like this, just like I've always distributed our A to F calendar. A to F is gone right now, and we're going to talk about our ABV. And I did change our C day to a V day. Again, the more consistent we can be with language, I think the better for our community. Riverdale is using V for virtual day. It makes a lot of sense. And so we'll use the same language. So what does instruction look like? And I want to be clear about something. Consistency is key. So if consistency is key, this looks the same in every single 1st grade classroom, including the full remote model. It looks the same on the on-site day as it does on the virtual day. There is 30 minutes of reading tasks. We've had some questions about recess. Why are we going outside? Well, your children were part of a very different type of school. They were part of a school and a classroom where they got up and went and sat on the rug. And then they went to their desk. And maybe they later went and played a game with a partner. They're going to be sitting at their desk. And while you say that's 2.5 hours, that's an eternity for a 6-year-old. So I think it's important that we get them outside. But you'll notice that I added SEL there. Our Open Circle social emotional learning program has a lot of activities the teacher can do outside with students, which helps to give us some more social emotional learning. It helps to guide that time so we're not all standing around trying to figure out what we can do when we can't play tag or play ball. But it also allows us, just so you know, there is a state requirement that every student have 150 minutes of physical education or health. SEL, social emotional learning, does count in that 150 minutes. So it also has a mandate reason behind it as well. In the upper grades, we see a lot of children who come to school that don't eat breakfast. And I actually don't believe they can make it to 1240 without a snack. Now, can we start to wean that away over time? Maybe. The biggest struggle with snack in the upper grades is that the road back does clearly state that all students must wash hands before they have snack and after they eat snack. So coordinating that hand washing, we are looking at purchasing some external outside sinks, because that is going to be a big part of that 30 minutes. So then you say, well, is it worth it? But again, it may be worth it just to go outside and feel like you're not sitting at your desk. For our 4th and 5th graders, this is going to be a real struggle. They're not used to it. So we're going to gradually help them. We're going to build in that time for them to go outside. We're going to get them some fresh air. We're going to give them some sustenance. And then we're going to get back inside because their afternoon teacher needs them fresh, needs them ready. Just use the arrow. This is the Oradell Public School master schedule for an on-site day. It also is the Oradell Public School schedule for a full remote program. It also is the Oradell Public School schedule for your virtual day with one change. On your virtual day, you will have a special area class that in grades 2 through 6 will always be a live stream class during a Zoom call. In grades K, it will be a recorded class. In grades 1 it will be a combination of recorded and live stream. And in grades 2, the same thing. So the schedule will tweak a little bit, but we will distribute what your on-site day looks like, what your virtual day looks like, okay? I did want to point out, because it also addresses a question that was submitted about the kindergarten playground. The only students that will be allowed during the school day to use the back playground is our kindergarten team. So they will not take recess at the same time. They will each be given a time during the morning to visit the playground. I think it's a really important gross motor development part of their day. We have purchased a backpack disinfectant sprayer. The playground will be disinfected between each individual grade level classes usage of it. Okay, so the nitty gritty. We can all envision what instruction looks like at Oradell Public School during the day. It's school, it's traditional school in your head. Your child goes there, their teacher teaches, they work on something, they share, they move on to the next subject. So the question is, what does that virtual day look like? What does that day look like when half the cohort is on site and half the cohort is virtual? So in 3rd grade, I'm going to walk you through the day. In 3rd grade, both the virtual students who are at home and the on-site students will begin the day together in a live stream Zoom call, okay? What the teacher will be doing during that time is the read aloud and the beginning of the reading lesson. So the reading lesson is a live stream lesson. At the end of that direct instruction part of the reading lesson, the teacher will say to the students who are virtual, You guys have some work to do today. Don't forget you have that reading lesson. You're going to do your math about multiplying by 3 today, and I will see you this afternoon. It's a key point. I will see you this afternoon. So I've had my live streamed piece, my reading lesson. I'm going to have a live stream special at some point that morning. Then I'm going to have a recorded writing lesson. Now, the reason this recorded writing lesson is important is because what did you ask for in the survey? Consistency. That is the writing lesson for the entire grade level, okay? Not the on-site students, because they will have that writing lesson on the virtual day the day before, okay? So, but that helps us build consistency. So if you're trying to put together groups in 3rd grade and you're worried about, but what if they're not in the same class? We strive for consistency, okay? It's efficient. If teachers share creating lessons, it takes a little bit less off one teacher's plate that week, and they can put those efforts elsewhere. But first and foremost, it builds team. It builds a philosophy of this is not my student, these 3rd graders are our students, and it gives us consistency. The math instruction will begin with the Go Math video. I know we hate the cartoon of the Go Math video. This is a proven method of education. It's called a flipped classroom. It's utilized in many high schools. It asks that the student begin learning on their own with a resource. The resource in this case is the video. They begin then to work on the work assigned for that day. But the difference is there's a 3rd component, the teacher at the end, instead of what we know the teacher in the beginning. This allows the teacher to sweep in at the end and not just teach the whole lesson, but teach where the problems were. So remember, on a virtual day, the cohort of virtual students will meet with their teacher in the afternoon. In 3rd grade, I anticipate that a good part of that 45 minutes, I think it's 45 minutes, going to be math. It's really probably going to be a focus of math, and let's share the writing work that you did today. In science and social studies, whether you're on site or whether you're remote, we're going to have you in Google Classroom because we really do feel like we need to get a little bit better and a little bit cleaner about our Google Classroom usage. The way to do that is to develop consistent routines. Okay, students in grades 4 through 6 will have a very, very similar structure to our students in grades 3 with 2 minor changes. As we know, our students in grades 4, 5, and 6 have 2 teachers. Half of the students in the grade start with a language arts teacher. If your morning starts with your language arts teacher, you will have your live stream reading lesson, just like the 3rd grade does at 8:45. If your morning teacher is a math teacher, you will see your reading teacher at 11 o'clock, and you will have your live stream reading lesson then. The other change is that, again, flipped classroom, that period of time at the end of the day, on your virtual day where you see your actual classroom teacher again in that Zoom call, we're going to need to split it. And we may choose to split it 20 minutes and 20 minutes. We may choose to make it one teacher on the first virtual day of the week and the second teacher on the second virtual day of the week. That's one we're going to have to play out. In the beginning, we're going to split it. We're going to have two different Zoom calls for those students, 20 minutes each. And so what does our full remote program look like? Well, first of all, it mirrors everything that I've been saying. FAIR is making sure that programs have similar measures, consistent measures. So our full remote program will also split students into an A cohort and a B cohort. They will follow the same type of schedule that their on-site peers utilize. Each grade level will have a dedicated teacher for their full remote students. Now, this can change if numbers change. Here's where we are. Let's mathematically do it. I told you we had 22% of our students who were requesting a full remote program. What do we know about 22%? That's about 1/5. Well, we typically have 5 classrooms at every grade level. So that makes it very easy for us to take one of our classrooms and make it the full remote classroom. This is where our size worked for us. Most districts couldn't do this. Most districts couldn't put a full remote plan together where there was an identified teacher at each grade level. These teachers are existing OPS staff members. They may have reasons for requesting a full remote to be a remote teacher. However, their reason did not outweigh their qualifications. I would not put a first grade teacher because they want a full remote, they want to teach remotely, or they have a medical reason to teach remotely in a sixth grade math class. That's not fair to your kids. So every staffing decision was made based on what we know about the qualifications and the experiences of our OPS staff members. So as I said, their day will mirror. So if you're in the third grade full remote class, you will be split into an A cohort and a B cohort. 11 students in one, 11 students in the other. Every morning you'll come together for your read aloud and your reading instruction, just like the other students. If it's your on-site day, you'll stay in the Zoom call with your teacher. She'll continue to work with you. So she's given you the lesson and you're working. She may or he may choose to have you come into a breakout room with them to give you individualized instruction. They may give you an additional teaching point and ask you to work on something. They'll very likely end the lesson with the entire class sharing the work they've done. But we're trying to mirror the same on-site experience using the technologies that we have. In terms of some of the questions I've had about the PTA supply box and materials, you're still an Oradell Public School student. There will be a time for you to pick up your PTA box. There will be a time for you to pick up any materials you need, whether that is technology, whether that is a math workbook, because maybe you work better in a workbook than in the digital version. Maybe that is a textbook because you prefer the hardcover to the digital version. Whatever it is, we'll arrange that time. And you may have noticed on one of the earlier slides, we do have a webinar at the last week of August that will be dedicated to parents and families who have officially opted in for the full remote program. But do know that your children will receive an education that's consistent with on-site children. So they will take the same assessments, which in the beginning of the year means they'll take a district writing assessment. They'll be assessed in reading using a Teachers College reading assessment. They will take Linkit, just like their on-site peers. Okay. So as you sent me your questions, I tried to put many on the slides and hit them there, but sometimes something would come up and we just weren't sure where it fit. So for this question, how much live instruction will a hybrid student have on their virtual day? You'll see that answer right there. And again, I can't emphasize enough that this flipped classroom model has some really great potential for us. Why are we not live streaming all core content areas? Well, we are live streaming the reading lesson, and we may move forward with live streaming more. I know a lot of districts are, but a lot of districts are because they don't have, they're not as big as us and they didn't luck out. You see, they're live streaming their whole day because their full remote program in many cases is that live stream because they don't have the staff to create the full remote classroom. We're not there right now, so I'd rather begin to integrate live streaming in a deliberate way. So we start with the reading lesson. On October 9th, if everything's going well and the teachers are not struggling with oscillating between, okay, these are the kids in the virtual environment in my Zoom screen, and these are the kids here, we'll talk about moving forward. But I do have to tell you, I have a confidentiality concern as well. I care deeply about your children. And not all of your children are always perfect in the classroom because they're children. And I do have a slight concern of streaming home and having the entire virtual class and all of their families and all of their parents hear the teacher say, Michael, sit down. Michael, sit down. Michael, you need to sit down. Because there are going to be some perceptions created. I don't love the fact that the teacher may be saying, Michelle may give an answer, and the teacher may say, Michelle, you know what? You need to do it this way. I don't want the confidentiality of our students, even though the live stream will be dedicated to the teacher. There'll be tape on the floor. They'll know where they need to stand, but it's really hard to mute yourself to give a comment. And when I'm worrying about muting myself, and I'm worried about attending to the students in that virtual environment, I just broke my first rule. The first principle of everything we're going to do, on-site time is golden. If I start oscillating, I'm here and I'm here and I'm here and I'm here, guess who loses out? Those 10 kids on site don't get me for 150%, and that's what they need. That's how we're going to make this work. We're going to use the time deliberately, specifically, and we're going to give the effort when we can. Now, as I said, October 9th comes around, reading's going well. I ask the teachers, I ask you, and everyone goes, this is working. Let's try it for something else. We'll try it in another core content area. Many questions have come in of how are we? I know there were inconsistencies in the spring. I'll be the first one to admit it. And how am I as the principal going to make sure that there is accountability for direct live instruction time? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the resources in place. So we are in the process of purchasing Zoom accounts that will allow me as an admin and my administrative team to have an admin dashboard. That means I will see every Zoom call at any moment. And just like when I'm walking down the hallway and I walk into a classroom, I can pop into any Zoom call at any point in time. It will also allow me to do data reporting to see how long Zoom calls were. Okay. I'm still going to need to ask you questions. And sometimes you're going to have to be honest. And that's the part of trust. And that's the part of being a family. Because what's really frustrating right now is I know that I had a class in the spring that parents weren't happy. And no one said boo until the survey came around. But guess what? You didn't let me do my job. You didn't let me make things better. I promise you, I am committed to making things as good as it can be for your children because I care deeply about them. But you're going to have to be honest. And you have to sometimes honestly have a conversation with the teacher and honestly have a conversation with me and stop worrying about what the ramifications might be moving forward if you're honest. I can tell you right now, I care about kids way too much to ever let something you say, even if it offends me, impact how we treat children. So there were some questions about the transition between the remote program and the hybrid program. The survey I sent out yesterday should have clarified all of those questions, but I've also added that slide here. This presentation will be on the front page of the Oradell Public School website, so you can refer to it. And again, it's a feedback loop. If you have another question, we will have more time for you to ask questions. The question was asked about how are we going to help teachers move forward? And one of the things that we immediately did was we changed the beginning of the school year. So for example, we now have 2 professional development days at the beginning of the school year just to make sure we get things started. And then from there, we move into how can we set resources up for our staff? How do we have a holding bank of videos to help them with different technology platforms? And most importantly in this area, we believe that what we need to do and do best is streamline technology platforms. Let's get good at things and not bring in 27 different things. My mailbox is filled every single day with vendors trying to sell programs. But what we need to do is choose a few programs and just get really good at using them right now. And our teachers have always had common planning time. They will continue to have common planning time to create that consistency across the grade level. As I said, 190 questions don't fit into nice, neat categories. And since my assistant principals are typing away like crazy over there, I'm assuming lots more questions are coming in. And they know that they're looking for trends, and I will address some of those questions as well at the end of this. So if you haven't gotten your question answered, don't worry. Okay, we do have a system, and at the end of this presentation, you'll also learn that we are going to have grade level webinars to where we really can talk more because the grade level parent population is much smaller. So a parent asks, is there a recommendation for a type of mask for students? You know, while we said you do need to wear a mask, not a gaiter, we didn't have any recommendations. So we started looking, and this was a great article about different masks and sensory needs and how to help your child wear a mask. How is it decided that the district can open? Well, the district must be able to certify that they can meet the items on the checklist there. There are 40 items. And if we can do that, that says to the state that we can safely open. How is it decided that the district go fully remote once opened? Once we're opened, we don't make the decision to go remote. That comes from guidance from the New Jersey Department of Education or the county health department because there is a spike in cases. How does instruction occur if a child or a teacher is in quarantine? We haven't completely firmed up our plan regarding this. So I'm sharing with you my initial thoughts. That's what a lot of this is. You know, we share a thought, we talk to different people, we start to revise that. As of right now, as long as we are being as consistent as we are striving to be, the student can transition into the full remote class for 2 weeks, if that's the period of time for their quarantine. If an entire class and a teacher is in quarantine because there was a positive case in the classroom, then the teacher's just going to teach fully remotely to that class. If a teacher is in quarantine because perhaps a member in their home has tested positive, then we've decided that the best model would be to bring in the substitute teacher and have them in the classroom for the direct supervision. However, we want our teachers teaching more than we want our substitutes teaching. So we would actually have the teacher live stream into the classroom with the sub assisting. And so when you're thinking about that, yes, on a later slide, we will be providing our substitute teachers with some additional support as well, because their job is going to change also. In terms of the aftercare, one of the questions, the YWCA has been wonderful and collaborative with us. We were very clear about what we would need from them on site. And that did include, if your child is in K2 and dismisses at 11 o'clock and you have them going to the Y, they're going to do their virtual special area class in the Y. The Y knows that. They talked about having a different location. We talked about the importance of headphones. They said that they would use similar protocols that they would use for the homework time of the aftercare portion of the Y. I do want you to remember that the only students currently right now that can go to the YWCA program are students who are on site that day. So if you're in the Maroon group and you're supposed to be here on Monday and Thursday, you cannot go to the YWCA program on Tuesday. They have said that that's not out of the question down the road, but they, like we do as a school, believe safety first. Let's start smaller. Let's keep building from there as long as everything's working for us. How will lockdowns and fire drills occur? Well, we have received notification from the state that we do have to continue to have both. We also received suggestions to make sure that when we plan these drills, we make sure we don't always do them on a Monday, or we make sure we don't always do them in the afternoon, so that all students have experience with practicing for these situations. Lockdowns are actually not as difficult because we have 10 kids in a classroom. They don't really need to huddle into a corner. In some of our classrooms that are very large, we've always had identified spots where a child would sit as long as they're in eyesight of the teacher. So instead of telling an entire class, we're going to huddle in this corner or go into this closet, we'll have spots that are out of sight and safe that students will be their lockdown spot. Fire drills, we're going to encourage social distancing as we walk. The good news is we're exiting less people. So I don't see that hindering our exit time, which actually is something I'm incredibly proud of. If Oradell Public School does something really well, if you saw one of our fire drills, it could be a video for the county. Deficits about spring learning. Well, that's already taking place. If a student was in grades 3 through 6, they took the Linkit Form C assessment in the spring. We use that data to start to identify areas of weakness for an entire grade level. So let's say our 4th graders had struggled with subtracting fractions. We now know going into 5th grade, we better hit that because it's going to be a gap. And no one ever wants to try to build on a gap. You got to fill the gap first. Okay. We always, every fall, do assessments for our students in the areas of writing, in reading, and in math. So those assessments will also inform what extra learning needs to happen. Will there be open air classroom options? In the reopening plan, there's a map. It's an aerial map of Oradell Public School. And what we did on that map is we created 15 fields, small fields. The majority of them are separated by sidewalk. The ones that aren't separated by sidewalk, we'll put cones up to separate. So those fields outside the recess time can be used for learning as well. Our teachers are very used to saying, I'd like to use the field across the street for this activity. And they tell the secretary in the main office, we keep track of it, and everyone knows that field is used at that time. It's not something we're going to mandate right now because on-site time is golden. And if going outside hinders the quality of the instruction for the lesson, then I'm not sure that's the best move to make. However, if I'm on site and I'm doing a writing lesson and I've taught the writing, the direct instruction part, and our students need to do the actual on-task writing part, they may choose to go outside for that portion of the lesson. In terms of extra supports like basic skills, ESL, speech, on-site time is golden. So those will be remote. Those will come as extras during the virtual day or in the afternoon. And I say this because this is my hope. Now, I have not scheduled this yet, but this is the lens that I will take to scheduling that. And hopefully all the stars will align and everything will work out. What will the new normal videos show? And I really want to thank the person that submitted the comment about students who are teasing others by taking their mask off around them, like, oh, look, my mask's off, you're not safe now. It made me think a lot about the work we do with students about peanut allergies and how we just don't joke about that. And in our spring newsletter, there was an article written where a student talked about how she always felt safe here because we don't joke about food allergies at Oradell Public School. So I will make sure that's part of one of our new normal videos that, there's just some things we don't do, and this is one of them. So we will do videos on entry and exit to the building. Your kids have in their head of Oradell Public School what it was like on March 13th. And what we want our videos to show is what it's going to be like when they come back to decrease anxiety and to make them feel more comfortable when they're on site that first day. In terms of SEL skills, social emotional learning is one of our district goals and our school goals. And so our social emotional learning committee, which was the emotional well-being committee of the reopening committees, has started to work on how do we take our open circle lessons that we have and how do we use the same structure, but identify some topics that are important now. And it might be things like, what do you do when you're scared? I use the example of when we first had stay-at-home orders and I had to go to the food store for the first time and the anxiety and the stress I felt and how that's kind of gone away with time. And that's what we want to help our students understand, that some of this is absolutely normal, but we're going to teach you how to deal with it and we're going to teach you how to express it, and we'll move forward from there. Okay, so what's coming forward, the next steps? Mrs. Hawley told me when I got to this slide, I'd be like, I'm almost done. And I would say that I feel that way, except there's still a lot of typing going on over there. So the week of 8/17, which is next week, we will be launching a dedicated, I seem to like the word dedicated, Google site. And it's not going to replace the Oradell Public School website, but on the left-hand side where we have those buttons of really important things like the calendar, we're going to link to this website. The problem we found in the spring was we were putting out information in places, but it was too hard to find if you didn't need it at that moment. So I would send an email out and I would tell you that if you had a tech problem, email techneeds@oradellschool.org. But 4 weeks later, when you had a tech problem, you didn't remember that, and I don't blame you. So the purpose of this website is to put everything in one place in an easy way. When the Education and Leadership Committee met, the suggestion came, they said, you know what, every time you send a blast, because I'm supposed to send a lot of blasts, every time you send one, you really need to put it on the website. And I looked at them and I said, I do. Unfortunately, it was 3 clicks in, so nobody ever saw it. So those are the things we want to improve. We want to streamline our communication. We want to make it easier for you so that you don't have to search. We will also start sharing our videos next week. And there is going to be a special education webinar on 8/20. Our class placements, we are not going to send letters. It would be lovely, and I'd love to make them personalized and everything, but time is of the essence. And to do our class placements, we need to have the enrollment done for our full remote model. And then our class placements will be done. So on 8/24, I will send you an email that says, class placements are in the parent portal. You will need to log into the parent portal. Now, the win-win for me is for you to log into the parent portal, there are several documents that you have to complete each year. And some of you I track down until December when you actually go into the parent portal for the report card. So for the first time in the history of Oradell Public School, all of our forms will be done before you started. If you have opted into the full remote model, we will have a webinar for you on 8/26. And as I said, that week we'll do grade level webinars. I'm still working on that. If you're a kindergarten parent, I'm really trying to find a way to get you here as well. Our 5th graders, our 4th graders, parents, I can show you a video of the classroom. For our kindergarten parents, I know that this is a whole new world. And as your questions came in, I realized that even more. Every Oradell Public School kindergarten has a bathroom in its classroom all by itself. Our kindergarten classrooms are the largest rooms in the building. They range from 850 square feet to approximately 1,100 square feet. They're big places. They have great ventilation. They're very near the kindergarten playground, so there's not a lot of movement in the building. But because we didn't have an orientation in the spring where you could see that, I know right now this is really a time of uncertainty. So know that Mr. Hagopian has been working diligently on a digital kindergarten orientation tool. And we look forward to seeing your students for screening, your children for screening over the next 3 days. Okay. I'm going to send some more information about those first 2 days. I have some thoughts in my head, and I need to talk to our superintendent, and I need to talk to the administrative team. I think it's going to be very difficult on 9/3 to have a virtual day. So I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that so everyone feels like they have a first day. But our students, to have a virtual day, we have to pick up all technology ahead of time. Our little kids aren't going to know how to necessarily log into a Google Classroom. So that information is coming. And I'm very comfortable saying that. Okay. I will not stand in front of you right now and tell you I have every answer under the sun, because I don't. But what I will tell you is I'll find them out. And that's what we'll keep doing. So look for more communication about those first 2 days of school. As I shared, there are some references in this, including the results of our spring survey, the NJDOE's roadmap, Oradell Public School District's reopening plan. And at this point, I'm going to take a very large drink of water. I'm going to look at my assistant principals, and I'm going to ask them if they have some questions that they would like me to answer. Yes, Mr. Hagopian.
Will there be plastic shields on the desk?
At this time, we have not decided to move forward with plastic shields. We did bring a vendor in to talk about it. And he actually said he didn't feel it was a good purchase for us. And the reason being is our desks are over 6 feet, 6 feet apart right now. The problem with a plastic shield, and I'm looking for, could you please get me a book? If you look at the plastic shields on the Facebook videos and on, you're going to see that the plastic shield stops here. The problem is I sit behind it. So the plastic shields works as long as I'm moving forward. But when I'm here and I turn to talk to the person next to me or the person here, we didn't think that it made sense as a purchase. We also found, and we saw this by watching some pictures, when you try to write and the plastic shield is there, your elbow doesn't actually fit onto the desk. So currently, no, we are not proceeding with plastic shields.
What is kindergarten doing when they are at home?
Repeat the question so that everyone can hear.
Okay,
So let Megan
I
repeat
understand.
the question.
What is kindergarten doing when they're at home? Well, by state law, the truth is a kindergarten day needs to be 2.5 hours. So they actually will have their full instruction day. That being said, we've decided that we still want them to have the experience of having a special area class. So their special area class will be one thing they do at home. And the other thing they do at home is they may have an additional, like, read this book with a parent, do this foundations page. It will take a little form of homework, truthfully. It will be repetition that in 2.5 hours can't happen during the school day, but can happen at home.
What is first and second grade doing when they are at home?
Okay. First and second grade, again, so they're here for 2.5 hours. They go home, they have a 40-minute special. They'll probably have they'll definitely read, because we're not going to have time to read as much as we normally read while at OPS. So there will be an assigned reading component and a log for that, just like there actually always has been. There will also be some reinforcement math work, whether that happened within Think Central. Lost my words there. Think Central, which is the digital component of the math program, whether that happens during IXL, whether it's a reinforcement activity from the classroom. Part of my hope, one of the things that's going to be difficult, like you try to envision what can you do when you're 6 feet away and what's hard to do when you're 6 feet away. One of the strategies we use a lot of time in math is math games. Math games may be something we ask that students play at home. I also do want to share, though, that I did have a question from a parent about, would we consider lessening homework in the beginning of the year, that our students going to be in a different spot. So know that that is also in the upper grades on my mind, making sure that what they do at home is valuable and not busy work. Because I do think that our students' stamina, and something we spoke about a lot as a staff, is not going to be where it was in March.
Are we considering going full remote in the fall, to start the fall?
Are we considering going full remote in the fall? Well, the truth is we can't just make that decision. There has to be a reason. So we would have to, the checklist of the 40 items was really released recently. So the superintendent and the business administrator and the administrative team does need to go through that checklist and make sure that we meet each of those items, and that we are assured that 1 or 2 of the orders that we need are coming in. As of right now, we anticipate them being here.
How will teacher support look like for our ELL students?
Okay, so as I said before, our ELL support will happen virtually, just like it did in the spring. The 1 or 2, there may be, our ELL students span a wide variety of needs. So if we have someone who is brand new to this country, we may actually choose to do some things on site because that language barrier is going to interfere with everything they do. So just like everything else we do, it will be based on the needs of the individual learner.
Will kids be carrying all of their materials back and forth to home?
Okay, currently, we do not have students. I know there are some schools that have students carrying things back and forth, but the truth is I don't really want a ton of materials going home and being in an entirely new environment. So we're actually trying to minimize the materials that go back and forth as much as possible. So in grades 3 through 6, students will be allowed And grade 2, our hope is to be one-to-one in grades 2 through 6 with laptops. And when I say the term one-to-one, I mean that where the student could actually take the computer back and forth. We have one shipment of Chromebooks that has been delayed. So we won't be able to start that in 2nd grade right off the bat, which is why we included 2nd grade in the technology survey. Because grades 3 through 6, we have a device for you to take back and forth. So that device has to go back and forth. But the truth is, something like the science textbook, I would actually prefer that we decide whether we're going to keep it here or at home. My gut instinct is I'd rather the science textbook go home, because the teacher, if you're a family that has struggled with the digital textbook in the past, it's probably better that the teacher be there when the student needs it. As again, and just as a reminder, as I said, all students' materials will be at their desk. So it's not they're staying in their desk, but it will be in a plastic bin there.
Why are we not taking temperatures at the door?
Why are we not taking temperatures at the door? Primarily because the CDC wasn't recommending temperature as a primary gauge. So we take, I don't make decisions because I think this would be a good idea, or I think this would take a lot more time. I make decisions based on the experts. And right now the experts aren't saying that that's necessarily a primary protocol that will keep us safe.
How will changes, we recognize that this plan is a snapshot in time. So how will changes to the plans be communicated going forward?
So that's why I'm being as incredible. What Mr. Hagopian asked, in case you didn't hear the question, was how will changes for the plan be communicated moving forward? I'm being as transparent as I can be in terms of feedback loops. So you'll see on that one slide, on October 9th, that survey is going home. I gave you a time for when it would be evaluated, and that information will then be shared as well. What will be shared is also if it informed any changes.
How will we keep kids 6 feet apart during recess?
And that's why we're still really, it's very fun when somebody's over there going, repeat the question. How will we keep kids 6 feet apart during recess? It's tough. And that's why I said in 1st and 2nd grade, I'm really looking at, do we use that as SEL activities? In the upper grades, honestly, they're more likely to sit down and talk 6 feet away and just eat their snack. And in kindergarten, I'm hoping, this is my thought. So you have 10 kindergartners and you have a playground. By nature, when you don't have 20 kids on the playground, you have 10. You may immediately get kids to start to go in different spots. If we find that doesn't work, I can start to extend the kindergarten into a field. Remember that our kindergarten teachers aren't alone in the room. They have an aide. I could put 5 kids on the playground and 5 kids on a field. The NJDOE reopening plan does not say we can't use any materials. So if I wanted to use a ball at recess for one kindergarten class, I can. We just need to disinfect that ball after usage and also wash hands, which we have to do anyway after a recess activity.
Do parents need to send in hand sanitizer?
Do parents need to send in hand sanitizer? It's never a bad idea for a child to have their own personal hand sanitizer, but the fact is every one of our classrooms has a hand sanitizing station. There will be hand sanitizing stations next to our sinks, and there will also be hand sanitizing materials at every entry door to the building.
What will be our social and emotional learning protocols if we go full remote?
Okay, so social emotional learning, when we talk about that, it's big. When we talk about a protocol, do we mean the program of instruction? So we would continue to use Open Circle as our format, as how we approach it with kids, to give kids a safe space. That's the #1 hallmark of an Open Circle curriculum. However, we do recognize, and a parent pointed out in the survey, not everyone's comfortable speaking up in a Zoom call. So the other piece we started to do is things like using Padlet, where kids could write something down about a feeling and an emotion. And that's part of how to do social emotional learning, you've got to start to get kids talking about their emotions. So however we do that, It's about making sure that we're not just relying on a Zoom call and that there's another structure in place that students can respond, share a thought, share an idea, feel heard, feel validated, feel safe, and know that it's okay to say when they don't.
I think you deserve a round of applause.
Are we done?
I'm still, no, I still have
Oh.
questions to answer, so
Okay.
we're not stopping.
I-
No, I mean, you can stop. I'm not stopping.
Oh,
I
I'm
have a
done.
couple of questions that I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're not going to close off. That wasn't so bad. Maybe it's because of your 190 questions that have kept me up for 2 days. But my hope is this. Yeah, Rami moved something around, but that's okay. I'm going to show it to you here. It's okay. You got it? Thank you. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone right now is scared. I'm scared. Okay. Our kids are scared. Our teachers are nervous. Okay. That's how we feel. But right now, what we need to focus on is how we're going to keep our kids safe. How do we keep our kids learning? Most importantly, how do we stay together as a family? We need to be open. We need to be honest. We need to be transparent, and you need to trust. I know that you're not always going to agree with every decision that I make, that my team makes, that this district makes. But the one thing I need you to know is that every decision is made with the best interest of children at the core. When I was hired as principal of Oradell Public School, I was told that I would be fine by this Board of Education if I made every decision based on what I know about kids. And that's what we're going to continue to do as a school. We'll make every decision based on what we believe is best for kids. And if we do that, we will soar on. We chose this theme this year because Orville and Wilbur Wright started out with a bike, just like we did last year. We put that bike together. And their bike in the beginning, if you've ever seen an initial video, which I'll show students in September, yeah, it wasn't perfect. It didn't soar. It didn't glide. But eventually it did, and so will we. So let's keep working together. And if you continue to have questions, I'm going to ask that you keep sending them to remote learning, and the administrative team and I will continue to monitor that. So thank you, and have a great night.